Raising money from the people you love sounds like a great idea, right up until Thanksgiving dinner gets awkward and your cousin stops returning your texts. Today we're talking about one of the most powerful and most dangerous funding strategies in the entrepreneurial playbook: friends and family capital. Every great company, from the garage startups to the billion-dollar empires, often traces its first check back to someone's mom, college roommate, or next-door neighbor who believed before anyone else did. But for every heartwarming origin story, there are 10 horror stories involving shattered friendships, divided families, and someone's retirement savings quietly disappearing into a failed venture. The reason this goes wrong isn't greed or bad intentions, it's misaligned expectations baked right into the conversation from day one. When you mix emotional relationships with financial transactions, you're essentially trying to run two different operating systems on the same computer. And eventually, one of them crashes. Think of it like borrowing your friend's car. You'd naturally treat it more carefully, communicate clearly, and return it in better shape than you found it, because the relationship is the collateral. Raising capital from people who love you works the same way. The money is secondary, and the trust is everything. The misconception most first-time founders carry is that passion is persuasion enough, that if you just believe hard enough in your idea, the people around you will too. But your enthusiasm, however genuine, is not a business plan. And confusing those two things is where the relationship damage actually begins. Here's what the data quietly whispers that most people ignore. Studies show that over 80% of small businesses that take informal funding from personal networks never formalize the terms, and that ambiguity alone is responsible for the majority of relationship fallouts, not the failure of the business itself. The business failing is survivable. A handshake deal gone sideways and a family of lawyers is not. So, the first real lesson is borrowed from the world of venture capital, but scaled down to your kitchen table. Always, always put it in writing. A simple promissory note or equity agreement doesn't signal distrust. It signals that you respect your investor enough to protect them with the same professionalism you'd offer a stranger. The second lesson is about framing the ask itself. Because there is a world of difference between saying, invest in my dream, and saying, here is my plan, here is the risk, here is how you get your money back. One is emotional recruitment, and the other is informed consent, and only one of those holds up when things get complicated. You also have to have the conversation nobody wants to have, the total loss conversation. Before anyone writes a check, you need to look them in the eye and say, there is a real chance you never see this money again, and I need to know you can absorb that without it changing us. If they flinch, that's your answer. And protecting the relationship by declining their money is sometimes the most generous thing you can do. Historical patterns in entrepreneurship show a recurring truth. The founders who navigate friends and family rounds successfully are almost never the most charismatic or the most convincing. They're the ones who over-communicate, send monthly updates, whether the news is good or bad, and treat their personal investors with more transparency than they'd give an institutional fund. Consistency builds trust. Silence breeds suspicion. There's also a sizing principle that gets overlooked constantly. Never take more from any one person than they can emotionally afford to lose, regardless of what they say they can handle. Money has a funny way of feeling very different once it's gone. And a $50,000 check from someone's emergency fund hits completely differently than the same amount from their discretionary account. The irony of the friends and family round is that the people most willing to give you money are often the least equipped to evaluate the risk. And your job as the founder is to protect them from their own generosity. That's not manipulation, that's integrity. And it's also what separates entrepreneurs who build lasting reputations from those who become cautionary tales at family reunions. At the end of the day, the philosophy here is simple. Treat every personal investor like a partner in the relationship first and a source of capital second, because that's exactly what they are. Discipline in how you structure the ask, consistency in how you communicate, and humility in how you manage their expectations will outlast any single deal outcome. Whether the venture succeeds wildly or stumbles quietly, the founders who walk away with their relationships intact are the ones who led with honesty, size the ask responsibly, and never let the urgency of capital override the permanence of trust. And honestly, that framework doesn't just make you a better fundraiser, it makes you a better partner, a better operator, and a better human being. If you're ready to take your next step, whether that's structuring your first investor conversation, locking down real estate deals, navigating home contracting projects, or connecting with the right lenders, check out our links in the description below, because we're here to help you build the right way from the very beginning.